I met Rhonda, 33F, during our sophomore year of college. We were both English majors with dreams of becoming writers. I was immediately drawn to her vibrant personality and sharp wit. We bonded over our shared love of obscure poetry and spent countless nights debating the merits of various literary movements. Our relationship moved quickly. By the end of our junior year, we were living together in a tiny off-campus apartment. We'd stay up late, reading our stories to each other and planning our future. We talked about traveling the world, gathering experiences for our novels, and eventually settling down to write our magnum opuses. Looking back, I realize we were both naive and idealistic. We thought love and shared dreams were enough to build a life on. So when Rhonda suggested we get married right after graduation, I didn't hesitate. We had a small ceremony in her parents' backyard, with just our families and closest friends in attendance. The reality of post-college life hit us hard. We both struggled to find jobs in our field, and our dreams of becoming famous authors quickly took a backseat to paying rent and buying groceries. I managed to land a job at a local bookstore, which at least kept me close to literature, even if I wasn't writing it. Rhonda found work as a waitress at a diner near our apartment. Just 3 months into our marriage, Rhonda told me she was pregnant. I was shocked but excited. We hadn't planned on having kids so soon, but the idea of becoming a father filled me with joy. Rhonda seemed less enthusiastic, often complaining about how the pregnancy was affecting her body and worrying about how we'd manage financially. Our daughter, Zelda, was born the following spring. The moment I held her in my arms, I knew my life had changed forever. She was perfect, with a tuft of dark hair and bright blue eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. The first few years of Zelda's life were a whirlwind. I took on a second job as a night security guard to make ends meet, while still trying to write whenever I could find a spare moment. Rhonda struggled with the demands of motherhood, often seeming overwhelmed and resentful. Despite the challenges, I cherished every moment with Zelda. I'd come home exhausted from my night shift, but I'd still find the energy to read her a story or take her to the park. As she grew, she showed a remarkable imagination. She'd make up fantastical tales about the squirrels in the park or the characters in her picture books. I started involving her in my writing process, asking her for ideas when I got stuck on a story. Meanwhile, my relationship with Rhonda became increasingly strained. She'd grown bitter about giving up her own writing aspirations to care for Zelda. She'd make cutting remarks about my continued efforts to write, calling them a childish fantasy and insisting I needed to grow up and focus on providing for our family. I tried to encourage Rhonda to pursue her own writing, offering to take care of Zelda more so she could have time to herself. But she'd brush off my suggestions, saying it was too late for her. Looking back, I wonder if she was dealing with undiagnosed postpartum depression that evolved into a deeper issue. When Zelda was 5, I finally caught a break. A small independent publisher showed interest in a collection of short stories I'd been working on. The advance wasn't much, but it was validation that my writing had value. I thought Rhonda would be happy for me, but instead, she seemed resentful. She accused me of prioritizing my hobby over our family, despite the fact that I was still working 2 jobs to support us. As Zelda grew older, I noticed she seemed to gravitate more towards me than Rhonda. She'd excitedly show me her drawings or tell me about the stories she'd made up at school, but she'd become quiet and reserved around her mother. Rhonda noticed this too, and it only added to her bitterness. When Zelda was 8, I finally landed a publishing deal for my first novel. It wasn't with a major publisher, but it was a foot in the door. I was ecstatic, seeing it as the first step towards realizing our old dreams. I thought maybe this would be the turning point, that Rhonda would see that our sacrifices were starting to pay off. Instead, it led to the biggest fight of our marriage. Rhonda exploded, accusing me of neglecting her and Zelda, saying I cared more about my books than my family. I tried to defend myself, pointing out how hard I'd worked to balance everything. The argument escalated, with years of pent-up resentment pouring out from both sides. And then, in the heat of the moment, Rhonda shouted something that stopped me cold. "Zelda isn't even your daughter." I thought she was just saying it to hurt me, but the look on her face told me it was true. Rhonda broke down and confessed that shortly before our wedding, she'd had a brief reunion with her ex-boyfriend. She'd always suspected he might be Zelda's biological father, but she'd convinced herself it was me and never said anything. The next few weeks were a blur. I demanded a paternity test, which confirmed that I wasn't Zelda's biological father. I felt like my whole world had been built on a lie. I moved out of our house, needing space to process everything. But even in my pain and anger, I couldn't bear the thought of leaving Zelda. Biological or not, she was my daughter in every way that mattered. I'd been there for her first steps, her first words, every skin knee and nightmare. The bond we shared was real, regardless of DNA. The divorce was ugly. Rhonda tried to use my lack of biological connection to Zelda to gain full custody. She painted me as an irresponsible dreamer who couldn't provide for a child. Her parents, who had never fully approved of me or my career aspirations, backed her up with exaggerated claims about my character. I fought hard, arguing that I'd been Zelda's primary caregiver for most of her life and that severing our relationship would be traumatic for her. But despite my lawyer's best efforts, the court favored Rhonda. I was granted only visitation rights every other weekend. The years that followed were incredibly difficult. Rhonda did everything she could to limit my time with Zelda. She'd cancel visits at the last minute, claim Zelda was sick, or schedule activities during my weekends. I tried to maintain a relationship with Zelda through phone calls and text messages, but I could feel her slipping away. Rhonda remarried when Zelda was 11, to a guy named Trevor, 38M. From the little Zelda told me during our limited time together, it was clear that Trevor wasn't particularly interested in being a stepfather. He often criticized Zelda's interest in art and writing, saying she should focus on more practical pursuits. Throughout all of this, I never told Zelda the truth about her paternity. Despite how much Rhonda had hurt me, I didn't want to damage Zelda's relationship with her mother. I always hoped that when Zelda was older, she'd see through the lies and we could rebuild our relationship. Now, Zelda is 14, and things have taken an unexpected turn. Last month, during one of our weekend visits, Zelda showed up at my apartment in tears. She told me that she had overheard an argument between Rhonda and Trevor, where the truth about her paternity came out. She was confused, hurt, and angry, at her mother for lying, at Trevor for not caring, and at me for not telling her the truth. I spent hours talking with Zelda, explaining everything that had happened. I told her how much I loved her, how I had always considered her my daughter regardless of biology, and how hard I had fought to stay in her life. It was an emotional conversation, but by the end, I felt like we had reached a new understanding. Zelda asked if she could stay with me for a while, saying she couldn't face going back to Rhonda's house. I agreed, but I knew this would lead to a confrontation with Rhonda. Sure enough, within hours, my phone was blowing up with angry calls and messages from Rhonda, Trevor, and even Rhonda's parents. Now, I'm at a crossroads. Zelda wants to live with me full time, and honestly, I want that too. But I know Rhonda will fight me tooth and nail. I'm worried about the impact another legal battle will have on Zelda, but I also don't want to let Rhonda continue controlling and manipulating our daughter's life. I don't know what to do next. Should I fight for full custody? Try to work out a more balanced arrangement with Rhonda? Or should I let Zelda make her own decision about where she wants to live? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1: It's been a month since my last post, and I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It's been a roller coaster of emotions and events, and I'm grateful for this community's guidance. After much consideration and consultation with a family law attorney, I decided to file for a modification of custody. My lawyer advised that given Zelda's age and the new circumstances, the revelation of the paternity lie, we had a strong case for a more favorable arrangement. As expected, Rhonda didn't take this well. She accused me of turning Zelda against her and threatened to reveal embarrassing details about our marriage in court. I stood my ground, reminding her that I had documented evidence of her attempts to alienate me from Zelda over the years. The most surprising development came from an unexpected source, Rhonda's parents. They reached out, asking to meet. Given their role in supporting Rhonda's lies during our divorce, I was hesitant. But curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed. During our meeting at a local coffee shop, they shocked me by apologizing for their past actions. They admitted that Rhonda had manipulated them with false stories about me, and they regretted not reaching out to hear my side of things. But the real bombshell came when they revealed they had known about Rhonda's affair and the paternity question from the beginning. Apparently, Rhonda had confided in her mother right after Zelda was born. They decided to keep it a secret to preserve the marriage and the family's reputation in their small, conservative community. They expressed deep remorse for their part in the deception and offered to testify on my behalf if the custody case went to court. This revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. On one hand, I was furious that they had known the truth all along and allowed me to be separated from Zelda. On the other hand, their willingness to come clean now could be a game changer for the custody battle. Meanwhile, Zelda has been staying with me. It's been wonderful having her around full-time, but also challenging. She's dealing with a whirlwind of emotions, anger at her mother, confusion about her identity, and anxiety about the future. I've been doing my best to support her, encouraging her to express her feelings through art and writing. One evening, as we were making dinner together, a new routine we've both come to enjoy, Zelda asked if she could read my novels. I had always kept them separate from her, not wanting to pressure her into liking my work. But now, she devoured them one after another. She told me she could see parts of our story in the characters and plots, and it helped her understand me better. It was a touching moment of connection that I'll always cherish. Rhonda's behavior has been erratic. She alternates between anger and attempts at reconciliation. Some days, she calls crying and begging for forgiveness, saying she only lied to keep our family together. Other times, she's furious, accusing me of brainwashing Zelda and threatening to reveal the truth about me to everyone we know. I've been documenting all of these interactions on the advice of my lawyer. Trevor, Rhonda's husband, has become increasingly hostile. He's left threatening voicemails and sent aggressive text messages, blaming me for disrupting his family. I've blocked his number and am considering legal action if his behavior escalates further. Through all of this, I've tried to keep Zelda's best interests at heart. Despite Rhonda's behavior, I've encouraged Zelda to maintain a relationship with her mother. It hasn't been easy, especially when Zelda comes home upset after a phone call with Rhonda. But I believe it's important for Zelda to make her own decisions about her relationships. The custody hearing is scheduled for next month. My lawyer is optimistic, especially with Rhonda's parents willing to testify. However, he's also pushing for mediation, hoping we can reach an agreement without a prolonged court battle. I'm nervous about what's to come, but also hopeful. For the first time in years, I feel like I have a real chance to be the father I've always wanted to be for Zelda. Whatever happens, I'm committed to supporting her and helping her through this difficult time. As we wait for the hearing, I've started writing again. Zelda's encouragement has reignited my passion for storytelling, and I'm working on a new novel inspired by our experiences. It's been therapeutic for me and has given Zelda and me another way to bond. She's even started writing her own stories, and we often spend evenings reading our work to each other, just like Rhonda and I used to do all those years ago. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and the situation has taken some unexpected turns. The custody hearing was postponed due to a family emergency on the judge's part, which gave us more time to explore mediation. During our first mediation session, Rhonda surprised everyone by breaking down and admitting to years of manipulative behavior. She confessed that her actions were driven by a deep-seated fear of being alone, which stemmed from her own troubled childhood. Rhonda shared that her parents, despite their outward appearance of being a perfect family, had a tumultuous relationship. Her father was often absent, engrossed in his work, while her mother coped by immersing herself in social activities and maintaining a facade of domestic bliss. Rhonda grew up feeling invisible and unimportant, which led to her seeking validation through relationships. She admitted that when she found out she was pregnant, she wasn't sure who the father was, but she convinced herself it was me because she was terrified of losing the stability our relationship provided. Over the years, her guilt and fear morphed into resentment, which she took out on me and, indirectly, on Zelda. While this didn't excuse her behavior, it did provide some context. The mediator suggested that Rhonda seek individual counseling to address these deep-rooted issues, which she agreed to. This was a positive step, but I remained cautious, given Rhonda's history of saying one thing and doing another. Meanwhile, Zelda has been thriving in her new environment. She's opened up more about her feelings and has even started writing her own stories. One day, she showed me a particularly poignant piece she'd written about a girl caught between two worlds. It was clear she was processing her emotions through her writing, just as I had always done. However, not everything has been smooth sailing. Trevor, Rhonda's husband, has become increasingly hostile. He's been sending me threatening messages, blaming me for disrupting his family. I've been documenting everything in case we need it for court, but it's been stressful for both Zelda and me. The most significant development came when Zelda expressed interest in meeting her biological father. This caught me off guard, and I'll admit, it stirred up some insecurities. But I knew it was important to support Zelda in her journey of self-discovery. With Rhonda's reluctant cooperation, we managed to track down Zelda's biological father, a man named Eric, 35M. He was shocked to learn about Zelda but expressed interest in meeting her. We arranged a supervised meeting, which was emotional for everyone involved. Eric turned out to be a decent guy. He apologized profusely for his part in the affair, saying he had no idea Rhonda was in a relationship at the time, let alone engaged. He made it clear that while he was open to getting to know Zelda if she wanted, he respected my role as her father. This meeting seemed to bring some closure for Zelda. She told me afterward that while it was interesting to meet Eric, she felt more certain than ever that I was her real dad. Her words meant the world to me. As we approach the rescheduled custody hearing, I'm cautiously optimistic. Rhonda's admission and mediation and her commitment to counseling have softened the judge's view of her. While I still hope for primary custody, I'm more open to a shared arrangement if it's in Zelda's best interest. Zelda continues to express her desire to live with me, but she's also slowly rebuilding her relationship with her mother. It's a delicate balance, but I'm proud of how maturely she's handling everything. Through all of this, I've started writing again. Zelda's encouragement has reignited my passion for storytelling, and I'm working on a new novel inspired by our experiences. It's been therapeutic for me and has given Zelda and me another way to bond. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that things have finally settled into a new normal. The custody hearing happened 3 months ago, and the judge's decision was more favorable than I could have hoped for. Taking into account Zelda's wishes, Rhonda's progress in counseling, and the testimonies from various parties, including Rhonda's parents, the judge awarded me primary custody. Rhonda was granted visitation every other weekend and one weeknight dinner, with the provision that she continues her counseling. The first few weeks after the decision were tense. Rhonda alternated between acceptance and bouts of anger. Trevor's hostility escalated to the point where we had to involve the police, resulting in a restraining order against him. This situation led to Rhonda finally leaving Trevor, realizing that his behavior was harmful to her relationship with Zelda. Zelda has been adjusting well to the new arrangement. She's excelling in school, particularly in her creative writing classes. She's even started a small writing club with some of her friends, which makes me incredibly proud. Last week, her English teacher called to tell me that Zelda's short story had been selected for publication in the school's literary magazine. When I told Zelda, she was over the moon with excitement. Our relationship has grown stronger than ever. We often spend evenings brainstorming story ideas together or critiquing each other's work. Zelda has become my most trusted editor, offering insightful feedback on my latest novel. She has an eye for detail that constantly surprises me, catching inconsistencies in my plot that I had overlooked. Rhonda, to her credit, has been sticking to her counseling and making efforts to rebuild her relationship with Zelda. Their weekends together have become more positive, with Rhonda showing genuine interest in Zelda's writing and other activities. It's a slow process, but I'm cautiously optimistic about their progress. Last month, Rhonda attended Zelda's school play and even brought her flowers afterward. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot to Zelda. Eric, Zelda's biological father, has maintained a respectful distance while remaining open to contact if Zelda desires it. He sends her birthday and Christmas cards, which Zelda appreciates, but she's made it clear that she sees me as her real dad. We had a heart-to-heart conversation about this recently, and Zelda told me that while she's glad to know about her biological origins, it doesn't change how she feels about me. Her words brought tears to my eyes. As for me, I've finally achieved a long-held dream. My latest novel, loosely inspired by our experiences, has been picked up by a major publisher. Zelda was the first person I told, and her excitement rivaled my own. She jokingly asked for a percentage of the royalties as her editing fee, which made us both laugh. We celebrated by ordering pizza and having a movie marathon of all our favorite films. The advance from the book deal has allowed me to cut back on my other jobs and focus more on writing and spending time with Zelda. We've started planning a small trip for the summer, just the two of us. Zelda wants to visit New York City and see some Broadway shows. I'm looking forward to experiencing the city through her eyes and maybe even gathering inspiration for my next book. Looking back on the tumultuous journey of the past few months, I'm filled with gratitude. Despite the pain and challenges, I've ended up with a stronger relationship with my daughter and a deeper understanding of myself as a father and a person. While I know there may be more challenges ahead, I feel equipped to face them. Zelda and I are a team, and together, I believe we can weather any storm that comes our way. For now, I'm focusing on enjoying our time together and supporting Zelda as she continues to grow and discover her own path in life.